Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple, book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. Currently, we are in Isaiah chapter 46. This section, as we move forward, will get more into prophecies of end times, um, the sufferings of Jesus. You could say Jesus' first and second coming. Very exciting prophecies. Very exciting prophecies. And again, I want to say that these prophecies serve as faith strengtheners. Why I believe in God, why I believe in the Bible, the fulfilled prophecies. And understand that these prophecies to a person who will not believe doesn't matter. But they certainly strengthen my faith. So let's get into it. Isaiah chapter 46. And as usual, some of these chapters are going to be rich with revelation. So I don't know if I'm going to get through the whole chapter. All right, first one says, Baal crouches, and Nebo cowers. Their idols are consigned. Their idols are consigned to beasts and cattle. Now, God is making fun of the stupid idols that man themselves conjure up. This is important. When you talk about an idol, these pagan idols here, and this is God's reasoning with them. Did the God themselves tell you to make these idols? And if that deity told you to make these idols, and we're going to see, he's going to look at the next statement here. It says, Baal crouches, Nebo cowers. Their idols are consigned to beasts and cattle. The images you carry are loaded as a burden for a weary animal. In other words, you carry them. Your God has to be carried. God says no. God has never ever made an image to be worshipped. And so these idols are figment of people's imagination. They make them up. Verse 2, the gods cower, they crouch together, they are not able to rescue the burden, but they themselves go into captivity. And that's what would happen. If a country, neighboring country conquered them, they take their idols. Verse 3, listen to me, house of Jacob, all the remnant of the house of Israel. Now, it's interesting to know that at this time, the house, I mean, um, Israel has been conquered, been carried off to Assyria. So you see the term remnant, and you see this a lot, excuse me, in Scripture. Remnant. In other words, those who are left over, the few that are left over. Listen to me, house of Jacob, all the remnant of the house of Israel, who have been sustained from the womb, carried along since birth. I will be the same until your old age, and I will bear you up when you turn gray. I have made you, and I will carry you. I will bear you and save you. So, unlike the pagans you create, you make out of molten metal, you cast, carve out of wooden images. You carry them, you make them. God says, I'm the one who carries you. Now, of course, he's speaking to them because this is who he's communicating with. People who have reduced themselves to pagan idol, pagan worship. Um, so, in other words, God is not having you can say, an intelligent conversation with people who have kind of sold themselves to something that they made. Now, if you want to criticize and say, well, aren't we doing the same? Well, the difference is that God has already demonstrated himself to be true, to be real, to be alive. Verse 5, Who will you compare me or make me equal to? Who will you measure me with, so that I should be like other gods? Those who pour out their bags of gold and weigh out silver on scales, they hire a goldsmith, and he makes it into an idol. Then they kneel down. Then they kneel down and bow to it. They lift it on their shoulders and bear it along. Then they set it in place, and there it stands. It does not budge from its place. They cry out to it, but it does not answer. It doesn't answer. It saves no one from trouble. So in other words, for example, God, remember, he spells out, the Assyrians are going to do this. I'm going to raise them up. They're going to conquer. No one delivers them. Now, this problem of paganism would plague Israel until the Babylonian conquer. Verse 8, remember this and be brave. Take it to your heart, you transgressors. Remember what happened long ago, for I am God and there is no other. I am God and no one is like me. I declare the end from the beginning, from long ago, what is not yet done, saying, my plan will take place, and I will do all my will. So, verse 10 again, 9 and 10, tells us of the uniqueness of God. First, he's the only God that is spoken. So if you can go back to any pagan religion, any pagan god, any pagan philosophy, any pagan ideology, where has that God spoken? So then we can go and say, well, how has it spoken? Well, look at the prophets, true prophets, who have spoken in the name of the Lord from the beginning. So for example, take a look, you take the prophecies that right now as we speak, you have if you were in this time, which around this time is 700 AD, BC. I'm sorry, 700 BC, right? So now if you start with the birth of Christ and you go 700 years in the past, so this is the time period right now. So at this time, you have fulfilled prophecies. Every generation, every generation, I'd say every generation, you could measure fulfilled prophecy. You can measure them, fulfilled prophecies. Here are fulfilled prophecies. So now, when he says, I declare the end from the beginning and from long ago, but it's not yet been done. So right here, if we were living in around 700 BC, we could look back and say, this is what God has said. This is what God has prophesied. 400 years before Israel went into slavery, God gave that dream to Abraham. He gave the dream to Abraham. Let me correct it, not 400 years. Probably from Abraham's perspective, over 100 years. I think the prophecy was, if I'm remembering correctly, that your people would be in bondage for 400 years. So he gave that prophecy to Abraham. He gave that prophecy to Jacob. And I believe he gave that prophecy to Joseph. In other words, your people will be in bondage. Okay, so that's again fulfilled prophecy. Again, hundreds of years before it happened. And if we're looking at this prophecy here, remember this is over 100 years before the Babylonian Empire that's going to come. We haven't got to that yet. My point is that we have this track record of God speaking before the beginning. So verse 11 says, I call a bird of prey from the east, and a man for my purpose from the far country. Yes, I've spoken it, so I will bring it about. I have planned it, and I will also do it. Listen to me, you hard-hearted, far removed from justice. I am bringing justice near. It is not far away. My salvation will not delay, and I will put salvation in Zion, my splendor in Israel. Now, he is talking about Babylon, so let's get right into that. Chapter 47, and then verse 1. Go down and sit in the dust, virgin daughter Babylon. Sit on the ground without a throne, daughter Chaldea. For you will no longer be called pampered and spoiled. Take millstones and grind meal. Remove your veil. Skip off your skirts. Bare your thigh. Wade through streams. Your nakedness will be uncovered, and your shame will be exposed. I will take vengeance, and I will spare no one. The Holy One of Israel is our Redeemer. Yahweh of hosts is his name. Daughter Chaldea. Sit in silence and go into darkness. But you will no longer be called mistress of kingdoms. I was angry with my people. I profaned my possession, and I placed them under your control. You showed them no mercy. You made your yoke very hard on the elderly. You said, I will be a mistress forever. Excuse me. You did not take these things to heart or think about their outcome. Now, some of this language, if you go to the book of Revelations, you will see this echo. And this is the continuity of Scripture. So, for example, Revelations chapter 17 and 18, you see a lot of this language here. And he's talking about Babylon. Babylon, by God's call, is the greatest empire that has ever existed. And then they get less inferior from there. The might of it. And God has set it up. What is interesting about this prophecy, remember, which is over 100 years before Babylon comes on the scene. Now notice this. So this is 100 years. This hasn't happened yet. And God is prophesying this. So if we're standing here around 700 BC, the fall of Jerusalem will not happen until what? I think about 970, something like that. I'll bring my chart up again, but the fall of it's got to be around 580, something like that. I know I'm a little off on my the date for the fall, but it's going to be like really literally 13 14 years from this the writing of this, and that's what I want to kind of emphasize. We're talking about 100 years before. So then you have the fall. So you have Babylon coming, conquering Israel, and then you see God calling it before it happened that they will be cruel to his people. He said, I was angry with my people. Now, the angry with his people, deserved, right? Deserved. Unbelievable rebellion with Israel's and Israel's sake. Unbelievable. It is just unbelievable. Okay. So he's angry with his people. He's calling this before it even happens. Right? He's angry with the people because of their sins. So he said, I profaned my possessions. I placed them under your control. In other words, I allowed you. I called you and I allowed you to conquer them. But he said, but you showed them no mercy. So now he's going to judge them for their cruelty. He's going to judge them for their sin. So verse 9 says, so now hear this, lover of luxury, who sits securely, who says to herself, I exist and there is no one else. I will never be a widow or know the loss of children. These two things will happen to you suddenly in one day, the loss of children and widowhood. They will happen to you in their entirety, in spite of your many sorceries and the potency of your spells. Now, if you want to get a glimpse or go ahead, go to Daniel chapter 5. Daniel chapter 5, and you will see this come to pass, where the Medes and the Persians will conquer Israel in one night. That is the famous story of the handwriting on the wall. Verse 10. You were secure in your wickedness. You said, no one sees me. Your wisdom and knowledge led you astray. You said to yourself, I exist and there is no one else. But disaster will happen to you. You will not know how to avert it, and it will fall on you. But you will be unable to ward it off. Devastation will happen to you suddenly and unexpectedly. So take your stand with your spells and your many sorceries, which you have wearied yourself from your youth. Perhaps you will be able to succeed. Perhaps you will inspire terror. You will worn out with your many consolations. So let them stand and save you, the astrologers who observe the stars, who predict monthly. What will happen to you? Look, they are like stubble. Fire burns upon them. They cannot deliver themselves from the power of the flame. This is not a coal for warming themselves or a fire set besides. This is what they are to you, those who have wearied you and have traded with you from your youth. Each wanders on his own way. No one can save you. So this is very, very, again, amazing here that God caused this prophecy, and you could probably, about over 170 years. It could be a little more, but over 170 years before it happens. This prophecy here is stated that Babylon would be conquered by Israel. Babylon will conquer Israel, and then God will turn around and judge Babylon for their wickedness. Now, there are a couple of thoughts that then puts here into play. One, God is not off in some distance. I think that is called deism. And the idea of deism is that God kind of created everything and then took a long journey, right? He's on a long vacation. Not true. And what we're going to see with these prophecies is that God is intricately involved. Now that brings another question. If God is intricately involved in terms of what's going on in the world, then he's certainly aware of the evil. He's certainly aware of the horrors. So why does he allow it to exist? Why does God let evil prevail? Now, look at this. You start with God who created goodness. So God did not create sin. Sin evolved. God did not. So you start with Adam. Here's Adam, the world, goodness. He sinned. Sin brought the curse. He creates Israel, his own nation. They sin. They repeatedly sin. So he said, look at verse 6 again right here. I was angry with my people. Why was he angry with them? Because they're repeated sin. So God brings Babylon, who was a more wicked nation, to judge them. And then he's going to turn around and judge Babylon. He's going to judge Babylon for their sin, for their rootlessness, for their wickedness. All right, guys, don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. I will see you in the next study.